So next, I'd like to introduce Sue Corner from Willamette University. So she's the Dean of Admissions here at Willamette University. So welcome, Sue. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Tanya.
Yeah, and I'm going to be making you a co-host so that you are able to screen share. I'm assuming you want to screen share.
Yes, yes, okay, that would be great.
And
thanks very much.
So once again, she is here to talk about writing the college essay. And Sue, before, I've done enough talking. So is there anything specifically that you need from us? I'm going to stay on and watch and listen, or shall I just turn it over to you?
Oh, I think I can take it away. I just appreciate you inviting me, you and Chris and Anne, having me here. I don't know if I told you this, but a really long time ago, I was a Beaverton district, and so I always love to participate in any way I can.
Awesome. I did not know that.
Yeah, no, you wouldn't. It was a very long time ago. But anyway, I appreciate being here. I'm actually in Helena, Montana right now at a conference, and Zoom allow us to do this. So I really appreciate being here. I will share my screen and we'll get started.
All right. I wanted to be there with you. That would have been great next time.
Next year. Yeah, it's a small group this year. So, but it's good. Okay, so hi, everyone. It looks like it's a great group tonight, Tanya. So nice that you have such a good turnout. Wonderful that people are thinking ahead about this process and to think about application already for next year. Again, I'm the Dean of Admission for the Arts and Sciences at Willamette University in Salem. I've been at Willamette for about 20 years. And my favorite thing to talk about is writing the college essay. It's just my favorite part of the application process. I think it tends to be something that can garner anxiety among students. They want this piece of the application. There are some sort of myths out there about what it's for, how it works as part of this whole process. And so tonight I'll try to just kind of give you some insight, the perspective of someone who has read thousands and thousands and thousands of essays over the years. My information is there just for those who, might have follow-up questions at the end. I'm very available questions for people, not just about Willamette by any means, but about the application process generally, or essay writing. So what I'm going to cover tonight is, what role does the essay play in the application? Why do we even ask for this? What are some of the do's and don'ts when it comes to your application essay? Just some, tips that I have gathered up over some common mistakes that I see students make. So we'll steer you away from those. And then I think what is the most popular part of this session when I've done it in the past is we'll have a little bit of time and we'll just talk a little bit about what does a really effective essay sound like. I'll read two of them for you that I have picked out in the years, and we'll talk, if you're willing to be a little bit interactive, we'll talk a little bit about they're effective and how you can achieve some of the same things that these essays achieve. So what role does the essay play in the application? There are exactly two things in my opinion part of the application really accomplishes. It has two very primary roles. The essay is an academic measure of your preparation for college. So it speaks to your readiness, and that's a really important thing that we're trying to. Different schools are going to try to assess in different ways depending on what their expectations are. But your writing should represent where you are academically, and it should be your very best work. It also helps us understand who you are and what's important to you. So it's less about the get that question from people. Does the essay really matter? Can I rush through it? Because I don't really think anybody's going to even read it, but absolutely it matters. For many institutions, and this is absolutely the case for Willamette, the essay is really the second thing only to the transcript when it comes to our understanding of your academic preparation for our institution. So for instance, if I am reading someone's application and I'm doing this holistic review that we do at Willamette, where we read every single thing we ask for, and I look at the transcript and I'm a little bit uncertain about whether the student is ready to be successful at Willamette. There are some issues in the transcript that might make me unsure. If you're on the cusp like that, the very next place I turn to try to better understand you as an academic person and your academic preparation is going to be the essay. The way you write, the level of writing that you display in your essay is going to be something that can really be the tipping point between my thinking, oh, yes, they are ready. There are these, maybe bumps in their transcript or areas where they don't necessarily excel. And yet I see they have a solid writing foundation. I know that this is going to help them succeed at Willamette. Or the opposite can be true. There are some bumps in that transcript. I'm just not sure you're ready. And then I turn and see an ill-prepared essay, something that does not display the level of writing that we really need to see at the point of entering Willamette, and that can land you in the deny or the waitlist bin. So it really can be a very pivotal part of the application overall. I don't say that to add pressure, not at all. I say that for people to really take it seriously and know that it's important and you shouldn't write it last minute or in a rushed manner. The essay is also really unique within the application. If you think of the different components that most institutions ask for, whether it's on the common application, which is what we use at Willamette, or an institution-specific application, whatever application you're using, it's sort of a standard set of things that we ask for. We look at some biographical information, who you are, what school you go to, sometimes who your parents or your siblings are, just some of that kind of background information. We ask for a list of classes that you've taken. We ask for a list of grades. We ask for a list of activities. It's a lot of things that when you really kind of add it up, it's all of these small data points about who you are. It's little pieces and lists that are all incredibly important. And when we add them all up, they are, they tell us a very important story about who you are. But the essay is different. The essay is like you started talking to me. You're looking at all of these other little lists and data points, and then you get to the essay and it's like your voice coming through in a way that's wholly different than everything else. It's very personal. If I've met with an applicant for an interview before I read their application, which I definitely prefer to do, we love to have those one-on-one conversations if we can. That changes the way we read that essay. The voice comes through in an even more profound way because we can sort of picture the person. It's just a very unique part of the application, and it's the place where, in my opinion, you can stand out the most. So what are some of the do's and don'ts when it comes to the application essay? Again, these are things that I've just kind of garnered over the years in my experience, some of the things that I see students or families making a mistake when it comes to the essay. The first one is almost laughable. It doesn't seem like I should have to say this, but in the day and age that we're living in, do write the essay yourself and with a clear understanding that your essay will be read and it can affect the admission decision. It does not seem like I should have to say that this should be your work, but there was some bad behavior a few years ago with that whole Varsity Blues scandal. And I think it is important to know that no one else should write or significantly change your essay for you. The whole point of the essay is what I mentioned a minute ago. It's about your voice, your experience, the context of who you are coming through. And that doesn't happen if someone else writes a significant amount of your essay for you or writes the piece for you. It just defeats the whole purpose. You know, I think Tanya said this just a minute ago at the end of the previous session. The college application process and the college search itself is about finding your fit. And if you're trying to work the system by having someone else produce parts of your application, you're not authentically searching for the right fit. You might find yourself mismatched with an institution if you've misrepresented something. So that's not what you want to do. The essay should be your work, and it should be work that you're really proud of. As long as you give yourself time to do so, it can be something you're really proud of. Now, kind of as an add-on to that, you do want to have someone that you trust proofread your essay for you. You want someone to help clean up those little grammatical errors, those punctuation errors, those things that I think sometimes when you're really close to a piece of writing, if you've been working on it over a few weeks or some time, you can start to gloss over or miss some of those little details that a fresh set of eyes will catch for you. That is completely appropriate. That does not count as someone else doing your work for you. Any important piece of writing in your life should have another set of eyes on it before you turn it over. And so having someone proofread is really, really important. Don't wait until 11 p.m. before a midnight deadline to complete your essay, or to complete any part of your application for that matter. The essay is something that should be worked on over time. Again, like any important piece of writing, you should have a few iterations of it before it's complete. Rushing through this important document almost always ensures that parts of it will come through as sloppy. And here's what happens when I'm reading an application and the essay is rushed. There are a couple of different assumptions that I can make, right or wrong. This can happen. If the essay is really short, or it's filled with errors, or it just doesn't seem to be like the quality of the writing matches the level of the transcript of the student. If it just seems sloppy, I might think, gosh, I don't think this student is really very interested in Willamette because they did not put forth effort in this piece of writing. I'm not sure that I want to extend an offer of admission because it just really doesn't seem like they care. Or I might make the assumption that, oh gosh, this piece of writing does not demonstrate the level of ability that we need to see. So this person just might not have what we need them to have to be successful. And that's what we're looking for in all parts of the application. We are seeking the right fit. We're seeking to set a student up for success at our institution. And if there are red flags around preparation, we don't want to put anybody in that bad situation. So we might think, they're really just not a good writer and not ready. The other assumption that can be made is you're just not a good time manager. You rushed, you didn't give yourself time to do this. You're not organized about something that's pretty important. We do get a time stamp when things get turned in, so we can see when those when those applications come in really, really close to the deadline. And it can create some concerns about, gosh, is this person really ready to manage the workload that we're going to give them? So all of those things can come into play just because you didn't, appropriately proofread or have someone proofread your essay. You may be a very good writer. You may typically be a very organized person, and Willamette may be at the very top of your application list. You don't want to convey something other than those things, if those are all true about you, just because you didn't take time with your essay. So don't rush, don't be sloppy. Do choose a topic. The topic is always a huge piece of the puzzle with the essay. People kind of agonize over, what should I write about? You do want to choose a topic that allows you to stand out a little bit and tell a story that's important to you. What we're looking for is insight into who you are. Again, it's about context. It's about understanding who you are, what you've done, who you might be should you join our community. All of those things are things we look for in the essay. So you want to choose a topic that's really sort of unique to you. And yet at the same time, you don't need to spend weeks and weeks agonizing over, is this the right topic or not? Is there such a thing as a wrong topic? Any topic really is okay. I mean, you'd be surprised at the things that I have read about over the years. It's way less actually about the topic that you ultimately choose, and far more about how you tell the story around that topic. And I think that concept is just a little bit hard to understand, but I promise when I read a couple of essays to you, this will make sense. It will demonstrate that it's really not about the topic when it's all said and done. It's about your voice coming through and the story itself. You don't want to waste time worrying about the topic that's time that you could be using to actually be writing. That's the more important part of the process. Do answer the prompt. Depending on what kind of application you're writing. We use the Common application at Willamette, so that's kind of what I always think about. But the Common app gives you 6 or 7 or 8 different prompts that you can choose from, and you want to actually answer it. You get to choose one, but you should actually address it within your essay. They're so broad that you can really write about almost anything and make it work with one of the prompts that is made available to you. You do want to be mindful of the word count that's given, and not because you want to just pad a piece of writing until it's right up to the total number that you're given or that you're allowed, but you don't want to be so short in terms of what you're offering that you stand out as being lazy or not having maximized this opportunity. Every single piece of the application, whether that's the biographic information, the where you list your classes, the activities listing, all of these things are opportunities for you to give us as much context and information as you can possibly pack in there. That's what we're looking for. And if you cut the essay short and just don't really use the maximum word count, you're kind of missing out on that opportunity to give us as much as you possibly can. We often, when I'm reading applications during the winter season, I'll often, stay home for a day and I'll read essay after essay, application after application in succession. And we're not reading them really to compare to one another, but sometimes it's a little bit hard not to do that when you're reading one after another. And so you just don't want to suffer by having that comparison to other essays that are more fully formed. Now, the don't on this side is something that I think the folks at the Common App might take issue with me for saying, but I'm giving you this insight because I think it's important. I don't think you should reuse a piece of writing you've written for a class, unless that writing was, the class assignment was to write a college essay. I think, and the Common App does give a prompt that says, bring us a piece of writing you've already done for something else that you feel really proud of. But I don't think you should do that because over the years, I feel like it is very, very obvious when I come across an essay that is clearly written as an academic piece of writing for somebody's, history class or English class. It reads differently. And almost always, maybe not in every single case, but in many, many cases, if you remember, there are 2 really main purposes of the essay. One is to display really good writing. You're the best writing you can do. And an academic piece that you've written for another class usually gives us that. It's often a very clean, very well organized, very well written piece. The other purpose is to tell us who you are, give us some insight into you, help us know you better and understand where you're coming from. A reused piece almost always falls short on that part of the purpose of the essay. There's just something typically that is colder, less personal, less exciting, honestly, as the application reader when it's a piece that was written for a class. So you can do what you want with that piece of advice, and it is allowed on the Common App to reuse a piece of writing. I just think you're not maximizing the essay for what it's really intended for if you do that. Do think about all the ways you provide context within the essay. Again, it's about context. We're looking to understand you. This point will be made clear again when I read a couple of essays. There are different ways within this piece of writing, even though it's not super long, it's about a page usually. You can pack lots of details about who you are into the story that you're telling if you look for ways to do that. And all of those little things will give clues to us to better understand who you are. The don't on this slide is a little bit funny. Don't mention a specific school within your Common Application essay. For those who do use the Common App, it is used by, I don't know, almost 1,000 schools these days, colleges and universities. Lots and lots of places use it. And all of the vast majority of the pieces that are asked for within the Common App are truly common to every institution that you apply to with the Common App. So if you apply to Willamette and you apply to Lewis and Clark and you apply to Whitman and you apply to Reed, all parts of the Common Application will go to all 4 institutions. So that means if within your essay you express your undying love for Lewis and Clark, I will get my feelings hurt when I'm reading your essay at Willamette. You just don't want to write with that level of specificity in your essay because it might be seen, you might be submitting it to another place. And I think sometimes students do this because they think at the beginning of their college search, they think, well, I'm completing the Common Application, but there's only one school on the Common App that I'm going to submit this to. So it's okay for me to express my undying love for that institution in my essay. And then it's very, very common. I have seen this over the years, and I'm sure your counselors who are on this Zoom call have seen this too, where over the course of the senior year and in the midst of the college search, that list of colleges that you're applying to can grow and evolve and change a little bit. And what's wonderful about the Common App is if a place comes on your radar screen that you hadn't thought you were interested in, you decide you are, you've already completed the Common App, you already have it, so you can send it off quickly and easily to that additional institution. But if you've already written an essay specific to just one institution, then it kind of compromises. It doesn't mean that you won't be admitted to that other place. It just is a little bit of a, I don't know, a little bit of a faux pas. So don't do that. Okay, so now let's get to the part of the session that I think really will bring a lot of this together. I'm going to read 2 essays for you that have stood out to me, and I'll talk you through why I think they're effective when they're all said and done. So you can close your eyes, you can do whatever you like as to listen, but it's going to be story time. So the first essay that I'm reading, the prompt for this one is discuss an accomplishment or event, formal or informal, that marked your transition from childhood to adulthood within your culture, community, or family. So pretty broad topic, right? And this person, they sort of did a title or a header to their essay. You don't have to do that. I would say the vast majority of people do not title their essay in some way, but you can. This person at the top wrote, social capital And then in parentheses, the word noun, like a dictionary entry. Social capital, with the definition, the network of social connections that exist between people and their shared values, which enable and encourage mutually advantageous social cooperation. I grew up in Meeker, Colorado, a Rocky Mountain town of 2,500 people. Both of my parents' families were community cornerstones, holding high social capital. My dad's family ran the local grocery store, and my mom's a reputable cattle operation. My siblings too had graduated from Meeker High School, meaning everyone expected me to become a 3-sport varsity athlete, get involved in church and charity work, and maintain a perfect GPA, as they had done. Had the setting been different, none of it would have mattered. But from an early age, it felt like I was expected to write the next chapter in a multi-generational legacy. As media stereotypes would suggest, high school was the catalyst for fame in my small town. But the summer before my freshman year, my parents decided to move 1,200 miles northwest to Scio, Oregon. We packed our belongings, bringing everything with us except the reputation and tradition of the family name. As we left the city limits, I felt almost naked. Starting a new life with a clean slate proved difficult. On the first day of school, it surprised me when my classmates didn't save a spot for me in the front of the classroom, and my teachers asked if I felt comfortable reading aloud. At home in Meeker, everyone knew I had always worked hard to be an exceptional student. On that day began the hardest test I'd ever faced. Never before had I experienced the lows of loneliness and homesickness. Like a sailor thrown overboard in choppy water, I plunged into high school with 2 clear choices. Trying to fit in, being someone I wasn't, felt worse than drowning. To be myself, an athlete, scholar, fun-loving weirdo, was tough. But when I worked up the courage, it was like learning to save myself from the rough seas, and I chose to swim. Even today, midway through my senior year, it continues to be challenging to act authentically and craft the legacy that I desire. I've learned that my reputation at school can't be formed with words. Rather, it's defined by my actions. Whether those actions include being the most rambunctious fan at the football games, leading the school as the student body president, or studying to ace the semester finals, they all contribute to the formation of a reputation I'm proud of. There's a photo of me from the day my family moved from Colorado. I'm sitting on the tailgate of our pickup truck, a floppy-haired kid, smiling hard to conceal the uneasiness I felt. Next to that picture sits a proof for my senior portraits. I've grown 6 inches, filled out, but the most shocking difference is how comfortable I look, sporting my favorite purple shirt, the smoothness of my brow, the void of tension, and the gratitude-fueled grin painted across my face. My journey to the Northwest has served as the bridge from childhood over the waters of adolescence into adulthood. It has been more profound than any event in my lifetime. Here I find myself again on the brink of another big move from high school to college. Last time I had no say in the matter, but the benefit of being thrown from my comfort zone was nothing but positive and formative. This time, I'm not only excited, but ready. I know who I am, I know what I want, and I can't wait to make it happen. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about why this is an effective essay, in my opinion. I hope you enjoyed listening to that. I think it's wonderfully done for lots of reasons. There is a storytelling quality to this essay that I particularly find appealing, and I think other essay readers do as well. There isn't anything stiff about this piece. It isn't so highly structured that it's inaccessible. Again, it's that idea that this person, it just feels like he's telling me a story. It feels like he's talking to me about this experience in his life. It's a narrative way of inviting me in to something that's meaningful, and that's very winsome. I had said something earlier about looking for ways to pack details about the context from which you're coming from into the essay. And I think he did a great job of that. He said things like, everybody knew that I was expected to get involved in church and charity work, or my family had this cattle ranch, or I was a student athlete and the student body president. He's telling a bigger story, but he tucks all of these little things in that help me know more about who he is. And I love that. Some of those details were not necessary for me to understand this story, but they helped. They made it richer, and they helped me know him better when I was done reading this piece. I love that this student used this nice little piece of kind of writing imagery where they talked about, like a sailor thrown overboard in choppy water, I plunged into high school with choices, trying either sink or swim. That was nicely done. People don't have to bring in those kind of writing devices, but I thought it showed a level of writing maturity that was nice. He wrapped it around then at the end, where he really did a good job of using that same imagery to address the prompt very clearly. He says, let's see, my journey to the Northwest has served as the bridge from childhood over the waters of adolescence into adulthood. So again, it's more of that kind of water bridge imagery that very directly addresses the prompt. I thought he did that very nicely. The language throughout this piece is really straightforward. If I were to read it again, you would notice he's not using really big, complicated words. This isn't something that you listen to this and you think, there is no way I could ever write this. This person is such a talented writer. There's no way I could ever do that. I don't think that's the case here. I think he uses very accessible, straightforward language. He's just taken care to put it together in a way that tells a great story. There's also something that I think is really interestingly done here, which is there's a vulnerability that comes through in the way he talks about how challenging it was to move into a new community, to leave all of that social capital that his family had built up over generations, to leave that behind and have to come into a new community and be his authentic self and not sort of just go with the crowd, but craft his, what does he say? Craft his legacy kind of every day. There's a vulnerability in talking about that and saying that he experienced these lows of loneliness and homesickness that he had never experienced before. I love that he expresses that and lets me into that. That kind of vulnerability is very appealing in an essay. Really, any way that you can move the reader is a very good thing within your essay. Again, if you think about that day that I will have sometimes at home when I'm sitting there reading just application after application after application, if the essay is dry or just a little bit dull, it's often fine. But when you get to the essay that moves you to cry or to laugh or to really make you think about something in a new way, that's a really good thing to do. Because again, what are you trying to do with your application overall and with the essay specifically? You're trying to stand out in a sea of applicants. You're trying to say, here's who I am. Here's why I deserve admission and a great scholarship. You know, you want to be memorable. You want to stand out. And if you can move the reader in some way, that really helps. It makes my day when I read some really good essays. It's very common for me to stop in a day like that and just email that student right then and there and say, hey, you know what, your essay amazed me and it really made my day to read something as thoughtful as what you wrote. It makes a difference. So that vulnerability or that emotion is really good. And then here's the thing, we had talked before about agonizing over the essay or understanding what you should write about and how do you choose the topic. The topic of this essay, sometimes I will ask audiences when I'm in person, I'll say, what was the topic? And they'll think, and the topic of this essay was that he moved. That's it. He's talking about moving. This is not a unique experience. Lots of people have moved in their lifetime. This idea that you have to come up with a topic that is so unique to you that no one else in the history of 17-year-olds has ever experienced it before, that's a really heavy task. For a lot of people, there is no such thing yet in their life that is so different to them that it's entirely unique. He picked a very standard topic. He just wrote about it in a way that was very personal and unique to him. That's the key. That's what you want to find in your topic. Okay, we've got a little bit more time. I'm going to read another, and then we'll have time for questions. This one doesn't have any sort of topic, but the prompt is, discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself or others. So again, very broad. Old people love clam chowder and pickled beets. You can tell them your name is Katie, but expect to be called Kate, Catherine the Great, Kathy, or anything else even remotely similar. If you forget an old person's name, take the chance of calling them Bill, Bob, or Jim. You will likely be right. These are a few of the important lessons I have learned while working as a dining room server at Madrona Hills Retirement. Where I work, everyone is a regular, setting my job apart from other servers. Every day I smile and greet each resident by name. I know exactly who sits in what seat and whether they drink decaf or regular coffee. I found comfort and humor in the familiarity I share with the residents, whether they treat me like their own grandchild or slap my hand away as I reach for their empty ice cream dish. ... Mary. Working with funny and grouchy residents alike, I have realized that interacting with older people is an incredibly rewarding experience, for they have taught me so many valuable lessons without even trying. Dorothy is 98 years old, which means she gets whatever she wants whenever she wants it. Each day, she wears her uniform of pearls and her yellow cardigan. Her day begins with orange juice, 2 eggs over easy, and white toast, which she eats methodically while reading the morning paper. Dorothy must always inspect the nightly dessert before deciding if she wants it, and if she does, decaf coffee must appear instantaneously in her mug. Most of my coworkers avoid Dorothy due to her specific demands, but for some reason I find myself drawn to her and her quirks. By observing Dorothy's opinionated nature, I have learned the value of routine and detail. She is equally excited each morning as she was the day before at the sight of her monotonous breakfast. And I think that's beautiful. Unknowingly, Dorothy has inspired me to relish in the comfort of daily intricacies rather than dwell on the boredom of sameness. Another impactful resident I've come to know is Raleigh, whom I met accidentally in the supply room. I went searching for the mop at the end of my shift, but instead I happened upon Raleigh, cooling off in front of the air vent. We began chatting about sports and school, but the conversation quickly became one-sided, and I listened to his stories from his career as a teacher and coach. Raleigh told me about the honor of being voted Teacher of the Year by his students and being inducted into the Cribbage Hall of Fame. From Raleigh's eagerness to share his story with me, I sensed that perhaps he had wanted to tell it for a long time. Tears filled my eyes as he explained that young people have always been the light of his life. By the time I finally departed, all my coworkers were long gone, the lights off in the kitchen. Although I unintentionally stumbled upon Raleigh that day, our encounter left a lasting impression on me. Because of him, I have gained an immense appreciation for the life experiences of those I serve. Raleigh has lived a lifetime of incredible stories, which he generously shared with me. For that, I will always be grateful. Working has taught me many practical skills, but I have learned much more than how to be a server. These hilarious, sweet people have taught me so much about life simply by sharing theirs with me. Dorothy and Raleigh are merely two examples of the characters I have grown to admire at Madrona Hills. With every glass of buttermilk I pour for Big John and every nightly loaded baker I serve to Billy, I gain respect for the wisdom and humor these wonderful people have brought to my life. So again, I think there's a wonderful storytelling nature here that comes through in this essay. She very clearly answers the prompt. She talks about a realization that sparked personal growth, a new understanding of both herself and others. I love the way she says, unknowingly, Dorothy has inspired me to relish in the comfort of daily intricacies rather than dwell on the boredom of sameness. The way she appreciates with gratitude that people generously share their stories with her. These are very definitely examples of personal growth and understanding of herself. So she does a beautiful job throughout of answering the prompt. I think she uses a nice, what I sometimes call kind of a hook at the beginning of the essay, where she starts out with old people love clam chowder and pickled beets. It's kind of funny. It's attention catching. It's very unlikely that that sentence is going to come up as the first part of any other essay that I read. She makes me want to read more because she draws me in with this rather unusual opening to the whole thing. And she uses a sense of humor throughout, you know, the way she talks about some of the quirks, that they all have the same name. These are things that she's saying with a little bit of a sense of humor, but there's also this very touching underlying sense of appreciation for these people. So it's a really nice balance, I think, of emotion. And again, that's what you're searching for, is a way to move the reader, a way to have an emotional response that will help me remember, oh, that's the student who wrote about, you know, being a server at the retirement center. I remember that because of that, the humor that came through and the touching nature of it. You know, I've many times heard, there are lots of rules that you hear out there in the world about what you should and shouldn't do on your essay. And one of those that I've sometimes heard, and I know why it gets said, but is that you should never write about someone else. You're writing about yourself. You want yourself to be what stands out in the essay. So I understand that as a rule. This is I think an example of an essay where she is mostly writing about other people. You know, the bulk of this essay is about these residents that she interacts with. The two largest paragraphs are about Dorothy and Raleigh. And yet my takeaways are all about this applicant and what she has learned and who she is as a person because of the way she appreciates these people. So it is very doable to write your essay primarily about someone else and still have the story be, the great takeaway be about you. So don't be afraid to have someone else be the center, as long as the way you're telling that story ends up giving us insight into who you are. There's a very real just kind of sense of familiarity in the way she's writing. And I think I said this earlier, sometimes like when someone reuses a piece of writing, it can come across as a little bit stiff or formal. And I think sometimes there is a misconception that college essays should be very, very structured and sort of formal. And I don't find those to be the essays that I remember. I love that she writes about people with their first names, and that she's giving me these very small details about who they are. The descriptiveness of the details and the familiarity with which she's talking about what she's learned and the routine of this work makes me feel very invited into the story that she's telling. It makes me feel like I'm connecting with her as a writer. And again, it's a little bit like the first one. There isn't a bunch of inaccessible words in this piece. This is not somebody who comes across as a professional writer. This is just someone who has taken time to choose good descriptive details and to put them together in a thoughtful way. This is not a level of writing that isn't available to a lot of students. It just takes care and a little bit of time. I also think what really comes through in this, again, the things about this person that comes through as she's writing about other people are her values. As she's kind of remarking on the prompt and the personal growth or the new understanding of herself, what I see are moments of gratitude and her level of observance of details and others around her, a tenderness toward both Dorothy and Raleigh, and these people that she gets to spend her time with. And all of those things give me that context that we are looking for to understand who this person is. And these are things that just don't come through in the same way in the other kind of lists that are a part of the application. So it's really fun to get to read something that allows those details to come through. Okay, so story time's over. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we have about 15 minutes less, and I wanted to, if it's okay, to just open it up to questions. And maybe some have come through in the prompt. Or in the chat. Sorry, I haven't been looking at the chat. One question that is there in the chat: what is the prompt? I think just overall, the prompt is the question that you're asked to write about when you're writing an essay. So again, the common application gives you 6 or 7 different prompts that you can choose from. And there are things like I read for these. The prompt for one was discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself. So it's just the topic is the prompt, and there are many to choose from. Let me look and see here if there's some other things I think in the chat. Tanya, are you? Oh, let's see. Oh, okay. Now I can see what's in the chat.
Sorry, I was typing back in the chat just now, so I'll start my video.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, someone had a question about where the would this be posted? Would this recording be posted somewhere? And so I'm going to quit typing back in the chat and just answer verbally. Yeah, we'll post this on the district website. I don't know exactly on the district website where it will go. So I'm going to go ahead and, I don't mind if I have 60 some people email. I'm just going to go ahead and give my email address, and you guys can email me if you want me to just send it to anyone individually. The recorded, it'll be posted on the district website. And then my email is Tanya, of course, Remy And then the other question is, would a student have to write separate essays for each college, or were you just answering that?
No, I hadn't gotten to that one before.
Okay, yeah.
That one
Yeah.
yet.
Would a student have to write separate essays for each college they apply to, or can they use one essay across all applications? And I mean, I know the answer, of course, but I'll let you go ahead and answer that while I'm finishing typing.
Well, it kind of depends. Generally, if you're, if you're using the common application, which again is that it's just what it sounds like. It's an application form that about 1,000 different colleges use. So you can complete the common application one time, you complete it online, and you can submit it to a number of different places if they accept the common app. So it's intended to be very efficient, a good way for these busy seniors to use their time. So they're not actually having to write a separate essay for every single place that they're applying to. So for places on the Common App, you can reuse the same essay over and over. If you're applying to institutions that have only their own institution specific application, then you're going to have to write an essay most likely for that institution that might be specific to them. It's possible that what you write for, one school, you can rework for another. They might be close enough in terms of the prompt, but generally you have to make sure you're addressing the prompt for each place. So
I had the great honor of having a senior in high school this year. And so my son applied to about 9 or 10 schools and wrote, the 600 word common app essay, and then had some supplemental essays. And I did find there was a couple that you could rework, but then, some schools are very specific about what they want you to answer a question about. And so, but often there's a lot of schools also that don't have any supplementary essays. And many, many schools just want you to send in that one 600 or 650 word essay. The main one, there's a question that does it have to be a true story, or can it, could it be a made up story that's still convincing and touching? And in the Common App anyway, one of the essay prompts, they say you can just send in any essay that you've ever written ever about anything. And you can, if you wrote a really wonderful essay about some fake story that's, gives all those qualities of an essay that that were being talked about earlier, then and then that's fine. I think it's personally better if it is a story that you have to tell, or an experience that you have, or but I think the person that asked the question might be a Westview student or family member or parent. I think the last name rings the bell, and you can come and we'll do a writing workshop in the fall, and we can just help you work through some ideas. And that your English language arts teacher is always a really great idea. But oftentimes kids will write an essay their junior year that's like this really awesome essay, and you can work that to 600 words and just submit that, if it's a great essay.
And I would say it is okay to be creative and write something that isn't necessarily about you. I would not make up something that you then present that seems like it's about you. There was actually a huge story in the Chronicle of Higher Ed this year about a student who sort of did that. They felt like they needed to tug at heartstrings, and so they kind of made up this whole persona that they wrote about, and it actually wasn't true, and it was very problematic for that student when it was all said and done. So you don't want to present something that seems like it's about you that isn't. If it's a creative piece where you're writing something, just a work of fiction that doesn't seem like it's about you, that's fine. That's a different kind of writing, and that's fine too.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that. Absolutely. Yeah. Gosh, those stories. I mean, that was just wonderful to just sit and listen to those essays. I mean, how brilliant to be able to read essays if they're all that good,
It's the best part of my job. Somebody commented to me personally that they've heard this session before, and I apologize that they've probably heard the social capital essay then, because I've used that one a lot. I just love the way it's written. I think it's so well done, and I do think people enjoy the kind of the story time piece of this. And that is a good thing to remember too, as you're reworking your essay, or as you're seeking feedback on it. Reading it aloud to someone, or maybe even better yet, having someone read it aloud to you is one of the best ways to understand how the reader will experience it. If somebody's reading it to you and they stumble over parts of it, that's a perfect thing to go back and think, okay, why did that cause them to stumble? Do I need to clean up that sentence a little bit? Hearing it read aloud is a different way of experiencing something that you've been looking at a lot. So I think that can be a very good way to go through that proofreading process.
Well, wonderful, guys. Any other questions? I mean, you're free to unmute, or you're also free to put questions in the chat. I think honestly, the first step, Sue, is just, it's wonderful that all these people are here just getting this proactive glance of thinking about it for the future. So just the fact that you guys are here right now is you're 500 steps ahead of the kids who will be like, oh no, it's November. I guess maybe I should apply to college. How do I do that? What do I do? So here we are. That's great.
Yeah, I agree. It's so important to start early. And, the common application itself, Tanya, I'm sure you make this, apparent to people, but the Common App opens every year on August 1st.
Yes.
And I tell people, if you can use the month of August, before school starts here in Oregon, you can get your entire application done. And you are so far ahead of the game in terms of those students who then, once that busy senior year gets started, it only gets busier. And the stress of, rigorous courses and sports and all of the things that students are involved in, once that takes off, it's really hard to prioritize this process, and it becomes a burden. Whereas if you're doing it at a time that's a little less encumbered, if you're doing it in summer, it can actually be a really self-reflective kind of rewarding thing to complete your application and think about all that you've accomplished and do this great piece of writing. And, it can actually be a really rewarding thing. So if you can use August, the whole family's happier. Everybody feels better.
Yeah, August 1st, definitely, create your account, get it started. I actually recently found out you can create your account on Common App before then too. So you can recreate the account, get it all ready to go, and then you can start the application August 1st. So someone asked if there's any summer essay writing courses that we know of. There's probably a lot of places like through Sylvan Learning Center, Huntington Learning Center, all those places that charge you a ton of money. Yes.
There's a guy on, gosh, you might be able to find him on LinkedIn, who's like the essay writing guy, I think is what he calls him.
Eric LaHoy or that
Delahoy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think he does some things. I think they're mostly virtual. I don't know if he does anything in person. He's actually in Helena right now. But I think he does some.
And someone says Khan Academy may have some, yes. So yeah, good point. I mean, honestly, you can get a lot of this free online on YouTube, to be completely blunt. I mean, you can literally YouTube how to write a good college essay and just get some tips over the summer. I know at Westview High School, we'll have some writing workshops in the fall, just to have kids come in, work on their essay. We'll give them some tips, things like that. And I think any college and career center would do that if you ask. There is, I believe Jesuit High School does have one, and they do open that up to some outside students if it's not too late, if they're not already filled up. Okay. Okay. 2.5 more minutes for questions if we want to finish or end on time. And I did put my email in the chat. Not that I want, 500 million questions, but I put that in there just for people, if anyone wants me to just individually send them the link. But the link, like Ann Voorhees said in there, the link will be posted on the district website in a couple of days. So just be on the lookout there. Yeah.
I'm putting my information in the chat too. I've sometimes had people, after I do a workshop like this, say, can you help me do my essay? Can you help me write it? And I can't do that because it's a conflict of interest if you are going to apply to Willamette. But I can absolutely answer questions about the essay or other parts of the application.